you went too far. When your ship has sailed and all your dreams are lost, everything is wrong, you feel like it's your fault. Just remember, I will be there for you, baby. Remember, there's nothing out there to get you, don't forget it. When life throws lemons, just call on me. Just call on me. Just call on me. Just call on me. You're stronger now than you ever been. You gotta leave now, it's time to catch the wind. You will climb up high and look through the clouds. And when you're feeling low, I know you'll bounce back. Oh, and just remember, I will be there for you, baby. Remember, there's nothing out there to get you, don't forget it. When life throws lemons, just call on me. Just call on me. Just call on me. Just call on me.
Happy Sunday night, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Icon Cup Series on Sim Racing Media. Here for the Martinsville 300. We're in race number 2 of the final 3 races with the final 4 drivers. Last week, it was at Homestead that we premiered the final round of 4. And we confirmed what we already knew. Brian Smith is going to be the driver to beat. He started 3rd and took the lead by lap 17, then led 133 laps en route to sweeping both stages and winning his 14th race of the season. The battle for every position behind him, though, was a game of musical chairs all race long as multiple green flag pit cycles opened Pandora's box of pit strategies. Ryan Patty started on the pole and led 25 laps, then gambled by stretching his fuel to skip a pit stop in stage 2. The gamble didn't pay off, but it also didn't take him completely out of the race either. He dropped to 12th at the end of the stage, was able to race his way back to a top 5 finish. Cody Neal, very consistent, running in the top 5 all night, finished on the podium in P3. Bentley Glazer, who started in the back of the field and slowly but surely rose through the ranks to be within reach of Brian Smith at the end and finished 2nd. The other final 4 drivers of Braxton Deweese and Patrick Colby also had great races, running up front and finishing 4th and 6th respectively. So we've got a tight points battle here in the final 4. I'm Shane Cochran. Up in the booth along with me as usual is Alan Bergen. Alan, how you doing this weekend?
I'm doing great. You know, here we are at Martinsville, and I always say when we come to short tracks, it's going to be bent sheet metal and hurt feelings. We got 300 laps, 150 miles here, and our stage laps are going to be at 75 and 150. A little bit smaller of a field than what we're used to seeing here on Sunday nights, but you know what? It's going to be a great event either way, as we got just one more event left to go after this one, and that's going to be to decide it all here next week at Phoenix. I'm excited. Here we are at the old famous Paperclip, one of the most historic race tracks on the circuit. And, you know, I remember watching Shane drivers like, you know, Ricky Rudd, you know, just the dominance of Ricky Rudd here. You know, this plays into a lot of these guys that are short track aces, if you will.
Yeah, I think all three tracks here in the Final Four are great racing tracks. So Homestead always puts on a great show. Martinsville gives you the opportunity to throw those elbows out, use the bumper to the fender if you need to, and then Phoenix is going to be, you know, just another race where you can save tires, play the fuel strategy. I think this race here tonight, there'll be a little bit of tire strategy. It's really just, but not the usual kind, not that you wear your tires out on the run. It's more about if you overheat your tires going into turns 1 and 2, you're going to have to be extra careful that next couple laps to cool them down. So it's a little more of a short-term tire strategy of just making sure you don't overheat the tires, especially that right rear in this next-gen car. You can really get into the gas early in the turn when you're on fresh tires, and later in the run, and even just a lap later or two, that will come back to bite you if you've got a little too much rear brake bias dialed in or something like that. So it's going to be really interesting to see who's got the skill around the paperclip here at Martinsville. And I've been to a couple races at Martinsville, saw Denny Hamlin win back when he had a ruptured ACL, or sorry, not ACL. I think it was an ACL. It was a basketball injury. I think it was an ACL though, but whatever it was, he had his surgery scheduled for Monday. The race got rained out on Sunday, so he had to delay his surgery to Tuesday, and then no sweat went ahead and won the race on Monday, heading into that surgery. So that was a great one to watch. Got my car stuck in the mud just off of turn 2 there, and had a couple dozen hot dogs. So it was a great race. I'm looking forward to this one here with the Icon Cup Series as well. And while we're here, let's go ahead and take a quick look at our point standings. We mentioned it already. So everybody having a pretty good race last week. So Brian Smith is out front, but there's no wild bonus carryovers here in the Final Four. It's very simple math. So Braxton DeWeese is in second, just 3 points behind Smith. Ryan Patty's just 4 points behind Smith, and Colby is just 5 points behind Smith. So it's still anybody's championship here as we head into Martinsville. It looks like some of the drivers are having some fun here at the end of warm-ups as we see cars flipping down pit road.
Yeah, absolutely. As we're getting ready to get to the grid here, and Shane, you know, the driver I'm going to be watching is that number 78 car, and that's going to be Brian Smith, as he has won 14 races all year long, and he's going to be starting outside the top 10.
Yeah, it looks like the 8 car, Braxton DeWeese, is going to start on the pole. You know, normally I'd say track position at Martinsville is really hard to get, but we have just 16 cars in the race, so it actually shouldn't be that difficult to go from the back to the front, vice versa. So keep that in mind. I think that'll play into pit strategy, because if you're only going to lose, 16 spots instead of 36 spots, that makes it a little more enticing to come get fresh tires when you get the opportunities. Looks like we got just one more car waiting to grid up, and here we go. So out front on row 1 going to be Braxton DeWeese. On the pole, Ryan Patty to his outside, then Patrick Colby and Cody Neal in row 2. Row 3 will be Kyle Purcell and Adam Ball. Chris Camburn and Sean Purcell in row 4. Cody Eldred and Brock Hersey in row 5. Brian Smith and Bentley Glazer in row 6. Then Jacob Smith and Jake Champion, row 7. Charles Woods and Robert Bloom in row 8. And that is our 16 car field.
Yeah, 16 cars starting this race tonight. And only one could be sitting in victory lane as we get ready to go to green flag racing here.
Drivers warming up their tires. I mean, the sun was out in practice, Alan, but it is very overcast at the moment.
I think they want to mimic the real race, but nonetheless, it's time for the second to last time this season to wet the visor, pull the 5400s, grab your tasty buns, and let's go racing here at Martinsville.
Right away, Patty trying to get clear of the 8 of Braxton DeWeese down low. Colby right behind him. And this is a track where you can run too wide, but every lap you do, the drivers behind you that are running single file are going to start to gain. So the leaders here are going to want to get single file as fast as they can, just so that they don't give any opportunities to the drivers behind them.
Buddy Motorsports driver Jacob Smith showing a black flag at the start of this one, but Ryan Patty gonna go. Well, as I said, that Tom Purcell's gonna set the fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, I think Jacob Smith is serving a penalty for that contact 2 races ago, or after last week's penalty report. We'll have to take a peek at that. But there's our first caution of the night. Adam Ball, the driver involved in that one. And that is going to be a great opportunity for Jacob to get that lucky dog right away, get right back on the lead lap, and not have too much of an issue from serving that black flag. Let's take a look at what happened to the 19 car of Adam Ball, racing with the 88 of Camburn. And just got in a little hot, a little too much brake bias to the rear. I mentioned that pre-race, Alan. That is going to be the tricky thing to balance here at Martinsville. It's all about getting your car to rotate, especially on entry and at the center. And it's just so tempting to put more and more brake bias to the rear. But that's exactly what happens if you do it too much, or you have to get on the brake pedal too hard to avoid drivers checking up before you expected them to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be jet planes in the gymnasium here as we get ready to rock and roll one more time. Ryan Patty, though, got out to the blazing hot start on that initial start, and like you said, Jacob Smith now gets that lucky dog position as he was essentially a lap down.
All right. So I did. Just a follow-up on Jacob Smith. Check the penalty report from last week. The 4 car solicited and received a push while his car was disabled in race and got a do not qualify and that black flag drive-through penalty we saw him serve just a few laps ago. So Jacob already starting with an uphill battle here tonight. He's running 13th though at the moment, as Adam Ball is now 14th. Or the order's kind of swapping on me here. It looks like Adam Ball is 15th. Purcell, that's Kyle Purcell, is going to be just ahead of both Jacob and Adam. Yeah, we talked about this. This is a long race, the longest by lap count of any this season, if I recall. 300 laps here at Martinsville. 75 laps in each of the first 2 stages, and then 150 laps to finish it out. And here we go. That's 294 laps still remaining here at Martinsville. Ryan Patty takes the green flag and jumps out to a quick lead ahead of Colby and DeWeese.
There is nowhere to run or to hide here on this racetrack, as we got some guys getting way outside that concrete, you know, and that concrete is so temperamental. Oh, we got a car around. We got a car around.
11 Gonna
Robert
bring out
Balloon.
the second caution of the night. And as you mentioned, Alan, yeah, there is, I can't stress this enough, there is no grip outside of that concrete in the turns. There's nothing but rubber marbles, and the car just slides right up to the wall. So you are going to want to keep both your left and your right side tires down in that concrete as much as you can. Let's take a look at what happened to Robert. Ooh, a little bit of help there from the 10 or the 01, but it almost looked like he came down on him. Let's take another look at that one. And he drifts up. You can see that left front locks up on him on entry, and then as he comes off the corner, he's, you know, you just would expect him to be closer up to the wall, especially if you're the 01. I think the 11 was trying to diamond his way down off the corner to make up for that slow middle of the corner. Maybe didn't know that Purcell was so close to him there. That's going to be caution number 2 in just the first 10 laps. You know, I think if these drivers can get, you know, about 10 laps under their belt under green, they're going to be so spaced out. I think we'll stay green for a while, but every time we re-rack them like this and at the stage breaks coming up, I think it's going to be dangerous. And it has not taken long for our playoff drivers to make their way to the front. Top 4 are the final 4. And it seems like, just like in real life, the drivers in the playoffs always bring their A game, their focus, and their speed into the playoffs. And we're seeing it right now. Ryan Patty leading those final 4 drivers at the front. But that means that as long as all 4 drivers are right there at the front, every position becomes even more important, because the points race is so tight. We mentioned it at the start. Just 5 points separate all 4 drivers coming out of Homestead.
Definitely, we're going to get doubled up 2 by 2. Now, it took less time right here in the sim to have the sun come out than it did in the real world race today, as the sun didn't come out until the final stage. But here we are, Ryan Patty, Patrick Colby. Your first 4 drivers are chase drivers. We're about to green flag racing here as we come to the guy through that restart zone.
Colby gets a little loose, as does Patty. Oh, I think the 28 was trying to get to the bottom, couldn't quite get there in the entry to 1. We jump on board with the driver of the 78, Brian Smith. 14 wins this season, trying to get around Colby, now on the bottom. We can take a look at the gears they're using. So he is downshifting all the way to 3rd in the turn, then up to 4th, and back down to 3rd. So 3 and 4 are going to be the gears that get used the most in the race tonight. And Deweese is right on Patty. It seems like Patty was starting to run away with it those first 2 stints. This time Deweese going to throw his nose in. Contact is made. The 30 able to save it. But that puts Cody Neal right on the bumper of the 8. Now he's going to look inside as Deweese goes high. And he clears Deweese.
No foul.
Oh, and now Cody Neal locks it up sideways and saves it. That's Brian Smith's opportunity to bounce up to 2nd. They're 3 wide now as both Deweese and Neal, with miraculous driving there. Neal to keep it straight and Deweese to give him room to do it without taking out both of them. Smith.
Think about this, Shane. Think about this. Can you imagine the momentum that Ryan Patty would carry to Phoenix next week if he were to pull this off and get a win here today? Or even Braxton Deweese or Patrick Colby. Think about the momentum that you carry out of this race and in the next week as we head to Phoenix.
Yeah, I think if anyone can keep Brian Smith out of victory lane, that is going to be the gap in the armor of the 78 that can give everyone confidence they might be able to pull it off at Phoenix. We have another caution. This time, I think it's the 98 of Charles Woods involved. Let's see if we can track down what happened to the 98. There we go. He's racing with the 11 of Robert Bloom. This is about a lap and a half before the caution. It looked like the 11 locked up a tire the turn before and then maybe adjusted his braking point, and Woods caught a little bit off guard, has to lock up his tires to stay out of him. And that was, I don't know, iRacing's being a little generous with the caution flags tonight.
Well, I mean, Barney's got to earn his paycheck too.
Well, at this rate, he's going to be earning some overtime. So the front four are still the final four, but they've shook up the positions a little bit as 78 took advantage of what we saw happen to the 38. And Braxton DeWeese went up high to avoid any complications, and that gave up the position to the 78. Let's see who's got the fastest car here, at least by fastest lap so far tonight. It's actually Braxton DeWeese in the 8 has turned the fastest lap of the night, but Brian Smith just 100th of a second off. Then Patrick Colby another 200ths. The drivers right on top of each other in terms of lap times. And that's going to matter because this track is so short that any significant difference in lap times means you might go a lap down to the leader. So at least the front five very tight on speed and lap time so far tonight. And again, just over 23 laps, our third caution of the night. Don't think anybody's really gotten much damage yet. I know Ryan Patty's looking for some green flag runs so he can try to pull away from the pack. He's going to try one more time. Now with the 78 to his outside. As they come through the restart zone. Green flag is in the air. 25 laps in the books. 275 to go. And Ryan Patty shot off like a cannon.
Absolutely. Ryan Patty gets the whole shot. But nonetheless, here comes the rest of the field.
Colby now looking underneath the 78. They're door to door. Colby starts to edge ahead just a little bit, but Smith with a big momentum push on the outside down the straight. And it is tough to complete a pass this half-mile Martinsville track. I think the bottom is the preferred lane, but it's just so difficult, especially in this next-gen car, to get the gas back to the floor on exit without being able to use that extra car width to the wall. And DeWeese now going to try to keep his fender inside of 78, but he can't do it, so Colby up to second. Smith settles into third, but DeWeese right there. Ryan Patty's got a half-second lead over what we're watching here on screen as now Smith dives inside of Colby.
Yeah, here's that battle for second place. Brian Smith, Braxton DeWeese trying to come with him. It's going to be a tight battle as they come off for turn number 2. And thundering down that back straightaway and Brian Smith's going to clear Patrick. But here comes Braxton Deweese in an 8 car. They are Goodyear to Goodyear down the front straightaway in turn number 1, and Braxton's going to get by.
Yeah, what a turn of events. We just saw the 28 drive by Brian Smith to take second. And then they went right back by him, and now Chris Camburn has had an issue on lap 31. Driver of the 88 just gets loose on his own. That's the first significant damage we've seen tonight, too, coming into the inside wall. No other cars involved, though. But it does look like we have a couple takers on pit road under this caution. And we mentioned the fuel window somewhere around 100 laps. So it really doesn't come into play in the first 2 stages. It will matter there in stage 3, especially if we stay green for a while. And drivers came in, I believe, with its 5 additional sets of tires, which is usually the standard for Icon. So if you were going to split that up evenly throughout the race, you'd want to get tires around every 50 laps or so. So it's really too early to be putting tires on, and that's what we're seeing at the pit stops. Just fuel only, maybe some repairs, especially for the 88 of Camburn, and he is going to lose a lap getting those repairs made. Not the worst thing given the way the race is right now. But I'm looking at this leaderboard, Alan, and just noticed Bentley Glazer and Woods are both out.
Oh no!
They just parked it. I didn't see them involved in any of the contact there.
Yeah, absolutely not. But nonetheless, here we are getting ready to get doubled up 2x2 behind that Iracing.com pace car as the lights are out on the pace truck and around the speedway. Brian Smith rather going to take his rightful spot there in second position, right alongside Ryan Petty. And Shane, I got to tell you this, I am getting ready for this restart as the lights are out on the Iracing.com pace car. Brian Smith, Ryan Petty going to be on the button as we are inside Braxton Deweese's car. Here we go back to green flag racing. Braxton Deweese up through the gearbox. 3, 2, 1 now.
Yeah, that's one of the shorter restarts on the schedule, because you only get to 3rd gear and then you're already hard on the brakes to get into turn 1. Braxton using the same shifting strategy we saw Brian Smith using, 3rd and 4th gear. So Patty back out front. Champion tags the wall. Oh, Deweese runs wide in turn 1. That's going to let Colby by. Neal trying to get by him as well. And the 4 car of Jacob Smith has made his way up to 6th position after serving that early race penalty. Got him a lap down, but he was able to grab the lucky dog on that first caution. Now side by side with the 8. Oh, you can see him lock up that left front, Alan. A little bit of contact, but we're still going.
I think Jacob Smith is having a hold my beer moment. He is not qualified, did serve a penalty, and now he's up here vying for a top 5, battling Braxton Deweese here coming out of turn number 3 and 4. They are single line, but we got a race leader change, and going into 1 is Brian Smith doing what Brian Smith has done all season. Finally gets by Ryan Petty He's been stalking him for the last, 20, 30 laps now. Ryan Petty not going to give up that easily. And he's trying to cross him over. But Shane, let's go back to that replay to show the fans at home how this lead change took place.
Absolutely. About 2 laps ago is where it started, and Smith just poked his nose in as Patty left the door open. And he did kind of push Patty a little high there on exit. That's what gave him the great run down the front stretch. Able to complete the pass here on 1 and 2. So some pretty great racing action side by side. And there is another yellow flag. This time I think it is the 28 that was involved. Go back a lap. Let's see if we can catch what happened here. And there it is. 28 just gets loose. And what a great job by him and all those drivers right behind him to avoid any collision. And we've been talking about this seemingly all night, Alan. The brake bias is the puzzle here at Martinsville, because if you've got too much in the rear to try and help with rotation, that's exactly what happens. We've seen 3 or 4 drivers get loose on entry just like that. But if you've got that knob turned the wrong way in the other direction, then you see what happened to Jacob Smith, where that left front is the tire that locks up. But I think if I had to choose, I would choose the left front locking up over getting sideways heading into the corner.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's going to come down pit road, except for a few drivers back up in the front, which would be Ryan Petty, Brian Smith, Cody Neal, and Braxton DeWeese. The top 4 still hanging in there. But Brian Smith, the story of the stage right now, has taken the lead. Now, can Ryan Petty find something to get some grip somewhere to get past Brian Smith?
Yeah, I think Camburn picked up the lucky dog, but sometimes you don't even have time to pit, so I think he just took fuel there to stay on the lead lap after taking his lucky dog wave around. And you can see Camburn beating the pace truck out to do that. And now Brian Smith out front has led 7 laps. Ryan Patty has led 37. Braxton DeWeese with 3. We're going to re-rack them and stack them again. So right now, 12 cars on the lead lap after Camburn gets the lucky dog. Jake Champion 2 laps down and out of the race. Bentley Glazer 15 laps down and out. Charles Woods in the same boat. So a handful of drivers opting out of this arduous endurance race that is Martinsville. 300 laps. As we're on lap 48. And Colby now the odd driver out of that final 4. The only one not in the top 10. The only one not in the top 4 right now. But the green flag is out. Cody Neal pushing his teammate Brian Smith down into turn 1 with Ryan Patty. And Patty overshoots the corner.
Ryan Petty goes way wide.
That puts him 3 wide.
Still.
I think DeWeese got turned as they were 3 wide.
No.
So Patty and DeWeese, you see them there parked at the end of the backstretch up against the wall. We kind of saw that one coming as Patty went wide. Right here. And then as they come off the corner, they might have been able to fit through there. I'm not sure I can put fault on any driver specifically, but 3 wide typically does not work at Martinsville. Why don't we let's watch it again and jump on board with Braxton and see what that looked like. Yeah, you can see Patty's up there, and then Smith shoots to his inside, and just trying to thread the needle. Too much toothpaste for the tube. So now, in the last 5 laps, 3 of the final 4 drivers have been involved in an accident. Colby, self-spinning on entry, able to save it. Then Deweese and Patty getting together in a 3-wide situation that neither of them wanted.
Yeah, it's, to your point, Shane, it's also really easy to bury yourself at a track like this. It's hard to, it's easy, to get out front, but the problem is you got to be able to stay there.
So 52 laps in the books. We do have a stage 1 finish coming on lap 75. So now these Buddy Motorsports drivers have positioned themselves at the front to be in position for stage 1. Brian Smith, Cody Neal, and Jacob Smith running 1, 2, 3. And then behind them, Chicagoland Racing teammates Sean and Kyle Purcell, both in the top 5 behind them. So while Patty, Deweese, and Colby are having issues, these 2 teams have risen to the front. Green flag is back out again, as Brian Smith edges ahead of his teammate Cody Neal. And now Jacob Smith trying to fend off those 2 Purcell brothers, who are now side by side behind the 4 with Patrick Colby in their mirror. Colby gets inside of the 74. That's Sean Purcell. And here comes Ryan Patty on the rebound, up to 7th. Making quick work of the field. 74 goes high, lets him by.
So you remember how at the beginning of the broadcast you said, the playoff drivers are real close together. Well, now they're real spread out.
Yeah, it's a big issue here. So Deweese was able to make about 30 seconds of repairs on his pit stop, but I don't think that's all of the repairs he needs to make, as it looks like that right front fender is banged in. Aerodynamics not a huge player here at Martinsville, but that fender is right next to that wheel. So any steering box issues, any wheel damage is going to really hurt the rotation of your car. Deweese up to 9th position already after the restart. Patty up to 6th. But it's still Brian Smith out front. So we see he was as low as 11th where the 78 started. Has been working his way up after a number of cautions to the lead. And then just behind him, Cody Neal. He started in the top 5, dropped out of it for a while, and has now come right back. Started 4th, currently running 2nd. Jacob Smith has been as low as 15th on the night. Has made his way up to 3rd. Kyle Purcell started in the top 5 and then dropped back after some early cautions, topped off on fuel, and has driven his way back to the front. Currently 4th. Patrick Colby been running up front most of the night until that self spin. It wasn't even a full spin, just a self, was that like a 110 degree turn, Alan?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
But he's back up to 5th. Then right behind him, Ryan Patty, just involved in that incident, going 3 wide, getting into the wall with the 8 car. He's up to 6th already. And then just behind him, in 7th, is Braxton Deweese. Now he's right behind him by position, but there's a pretty big gap between them, almost 4 seconds. between Patty and Deweese, but everybody single filed out at the moment. Brian Smith.
You can already see those hello, welcome to English class. Those brake rotors glowing here on those race cars. You know, especially on Braxton Deweese's car where these guys are doing hard braking. There it is, that orange glow that we always see coming up to the short track. There, oh, look at that thing light up.
Yeah, they've got the rotors cooking.
I mean, honestly, the brakes are hotter than me.
Hotter than the griddle at a Waffle House at 3 in the morning.
Hey, there it is.
So the 38 is closing in, Alan.
It depends on what Waffle House he goes to.
I guess it does. But yeah, Brian's out front, but he is not pulling away. At least not from the 38, though, as Cody just slaps the wall.
Look, Shane, here's the thing. If I go to Waffle House at 3 a.m. and that griddle's not hot, I got a lot of questions.
Yes, sir. The 38 locks up the rear tire on entry and just kind of slides around the corner. Doesn't really lose any time. He is trying some different lines here, trying to figure out a way to beat the 78 out front. As I mentioned, they're pretty single filed out here. They're actually less than a straightaway between Brian Smith and the last car in the lead lap. That's the 24 of Brock Hersey. So Hersey going to have to pick up the pace. He does not want to get caught by Brian Smith. We have just 5 laps to go in the stage. He should be able to make it. Closest battle on the track is this one between Patty and Colby. Patty using a little bit of a higher entry to try and cut the corner on exit. Whereas Colby's doing a more traditional line here around Martinsville, just hugging that inner curb as best you can. And they are both chasing down the 01 of Kyle Purcell. 2 laps to go in stage 1. Patty is to his bumper, but doesn't look like he's going to be able to complete the pass. Gonna have one more shot at it. Brian Smith and Cody Neal out front, then Jacob Smith behind him. But again, the battle that was closest was this one for 4th through 6th. There's the stage caution. Brian Smith, winner of stage 1 after leading 36 laps here in the first stage. And his drivers decide if they want to get tires or not just yet. We're going to step away for our first commercial break of the night and be back for the start of stage 2 here with the Icon Cup Series and the Martinsville 300 on SRM. Pace truck is off. Welcome back to the start. Stage 2 of the race at Martinsville for the Icon Cup Series. Just the next to the last race here in the season. Cody Neal came out ahead of his teammate Brian Smith on that pit cycle. And he's going to take the lead away just like that. But I don't think Brian's going to let it go that easily. He dives down to the bottom. Oh, a little bit of door banging between teammates. As Jacob Smith and Patrick Colby trying to hang with these two to take advantage. Jacob to the inside now of Cody. Oh, and Smith gets in too hard, hits the bumper of Brian Smith, and goes around. I'm sure if you're the 78, you're thinking like, guys, you can't wreck me now. We're running for the championship here. Camburn also involved in that one. Let's go back and take a look at that one more time from the SRM blimp. When we saw these three battling hard, Jacob gets a great run on the bottom. Brian pulls away, and then Cody Neal builds momentum on the outside. And then it almost looked like maybe Brian braked before either of those two drivers were expecting him to. And then you see Camburn getting collected as drivers try to avoid it with just the gentlest kiss of fenders there. So it doesn't look like too much damage for anybody involved in this one. So Jacob going to come to pit road, double check everything on that 4 car. Braxton DeWeese, Chris Camburn, and Sean Purcell are also in the pits. DeWeese with damage from earlier. Probably trying to get those fenders hammered out the way he wants them and off of the front tire. Looks like he will. We take a look at our wrench wranglers on the night. All drivers having to make some repairs. And right now, Chris Camburn leading that stat with almost 1.5 minutes of repairs, but still out there and in 10th place. Now, Sean Purcell in the 74 has been on pit road for 6 laps. I don't remember him having any heavy contact or anything. The car looks like it's all in one piece, so maybe a network or hardware issue for Sean. Certainly disappointing. He was running in the top 5 not too long ago. Just like that, we're right back to it. Brian Smith and Cody Neal out front. Patrick Colby and Adam Ball now your top 4. Ryan Patty sitting in 5th. And Neal really spun the tires on the restart. That's going to let Colby and Patty to his inside. Colby gets by the 38. Patty now trying to follow him right through, and they both clear him. So now the 28 has rebounded all the way back to 2nd place after that spin back around lap 45. Half spin, quarter spin, whatever it was, brought out a caution. Ryan Patty hanging right there with him. Also rebounding from an incident between he and the 8 cars. They got 3 wide and into the wall. So really the only driver so far that hasn't really had any issues has been Brian Smith up front. His only issue was a poor qualifying result. He's now led 46 laps and won the first stage. Deweese and Jacob Smith now going at it. This is for 6th. And that 8 car does look pretty well put together at this point. Not sure how much damage, if any, is remaining there for Braxton. But Jacob going to go by and then start to work on the 19 of Adam Ball. Down to the inside. He's going to clear him there. So we jump on board with the 4 of Jacob Smith. Same driving style we saw out of everybody else tonight. Using 3rd gear in the turns. Oh, pretty hard into the wall there.
We're gonna have that all night long as some of these drivers are, you know, gonna skirt that wall just a hair, but nonetheless, we got Brian Smith continuing to lead this race. I mean, he's gonna, this, you know, 14 wins will be a statement that says this is why he's a champion once we get to Phoenix next week.
We're now riding on the back bumper of Patrick Colby, running second. He's got Ryan Patty and Cody Neal just behind him. Great shot here of the nuance of the different lines you can run at Martinsville. And Colby has been hugging the bottom pretty much the entire race, while Patty has been doing a higher entry and then shooting down to that curb on exit. It usually gives him a better top speed there on the straights, but it also leaves him open to another driver trying to stick their nose in there. As you can see, Cody Neal getting tempted every time Patty enters just about a half car width high.
Definitely want to be careful of that. Here comes Ryan Patty looking underneath as we're looking out that back deck lid of Patrick Colby's car.
Now we flip it, jump on board with Patty. Starting to get some breathing room from Neal behind him. And right there you can see it. He's doing that same approach. Enter high, about a half car width. Maybe this time a full car width as he shoots to the outside of Colby. And then cut that corner off. Like, on paper, this should be working for him, Alan. It should be able to give him a great run on the 28, but the 28's just looks glued to the track.
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% correct. As Patrick Colby is getting a better exit than Ryan Patty.
That time the 30 hugged the curve all the way through. Always taking a look inside. And he's there side by side now, our Patty and Colby for second place. 2 playoff drivers. Every position counts at this point of the season. And he's got it. Patty to second.
Every position mattered all season long. Matters now, really, if you're those last 4 drivers in the playoffs. Question is now, are you going to have the momentum that you're going to need when we go to Phoenix next week?
It looks like we might have lost another driver, Alan. Robert Bloom has now entered the pits and has been there for a couple laps. I didn't see any particular contact or anything there for the 11. But he is the latest driver to most likely call it quits here tonight. The 74 is still sitting there on pit road as well. So that leaves just 10 drivers on the track, all on the lead lap. As we're about halfway through stage 2 here in the Martinsville 300. Brian Smith starting to gap the cars behind him now, over a second and a half. But the battle for third is heating up now as Cody Neal working on Patrick Colby.
And our championship 4 is still very much in it.
On board with a 38. Yeah, it seems like I don't think there's another way to shift the gears here with this setup, Alan. Everybody using pretty much an identical driving style. I mean, the thing that makes me nervous, though, is when they downshift to third, they are redlined. They are doing it as early as possible.
And you can really hurt the motor doing that.
Yeah, either that or just break those rear tires loose on entry. So Colby's going to hold him off for now. Jacob Smith lurking just behind them. He's in 5th position.
So next week we go to Phoenix. What's going to be your favorite? Are you going to have like a Southwestern themed dinner for next week, or?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what your pre-race ritual is, but for me, it's usually just a cup of coffee. If I'm driving, especially when I do, I get into those like 24-hour endurance races. It's coffee and banana. That's like the only thing I can get in my stomach comfortably before I get tensed up in the car. But yeah, for a championship race, I don't know. I don't know if you want to play any games with Southwestern food in your stomach with a race that important. Neal still trying to get by Colby. He's going to poke his nose to the inside here. They go through turns 1 and 2. And it looks like that will be enough to give him the advantage here down into 3. Jacob Smith kind of ran up on these two. Had to check up to avoid making contact. That's going to cost him about a second. Yeah, but Cody Neal now comfortably in 3rd.
Let's talk about Jacob Smith just for a little bit. The guy, gets a push, gets assistance last week, doesn't get to qualify, doesn't get to, has to come down pit road to start the race off. And here he is, running in that 5th position. I mean, this is a driver that's had to overcome adversity twice in 2 weeks.
Not to mention he spun around about 2 cautions ago. A great rebound. I'm sure he'd like to be a little further up there and challenging Smith for the lead. That lead is now 2.5 seconds over Ryan Patty. But all 4 of our championship drivers in the top 6, with Cody Neal and Jacob Smith also running in the top 6 with them. And it seems like this pass is inevitable as Colby has been dropping back through the field. And this might be a sign that he's got a short run driving style. And then over the course of the run, he loses the tires as he's now dropped to 5th with Jacob Smith in the 4 going around him.
Halfway through stage number 2. right now 46 laps in the, or 45 laps in the history books here with stage number 2. Right now, Brian Smith, Ryan Batty are the stories of the afternoon. But here comes Cody Neal in that number 38 car. He's looking. Can he get around the 30 car?
Love this view on the hood of the 38. Trying to get to the bumper of Ryan Patty. These two just seem to be matching each other lap after lap. Let's see, they're pulling away from Jacob behind them.
And that's what you want to do here on a track like this.
But between the two of them, they're pretty much matching lap times. Neal just a few hundredths of a second faster. It's going to take a little more than that. You've got to get a run off the corner to get side by side on the straightaway before turn entry to really have a shot at making the pass. These two still going at it. 23 laps to the end of the stage. At lap 150. So far, the pit strategy's been pretty simple. If you need repairs, get them. Otherwise, you're taking tires at the stage. So we see Hersey in the 24. He is now the only car, or sorry, Adam Ball actually just went one lap down. And Ball is in the pits.
Oh no, hopefully we don't lose another driver.
Don't see any incidents or damage. So that leaves Brock Hersey in the lucky dog position, one lap down. And here comes Braxton Deweese as well. This is a bit of a surprise to me, Alan. I'm not sure why you'd want to come here under green unless you really had to. And my fuel notes made it sound like nobody should have to. I mean, that looked like a fuel-only stop. Very quick.
Oh.
About 5.5 seconds.
Could this be part of a strategy? I mean, could these guys be running low on fuel?
I don't know. I don't know why they would. And so Deweese is now a lap down and gonna go 2 laps down here if he doesn't pick up the pace to stay ahead of Brian Smith. Right here. Yeah, I can't understand why you'd want to come in for fuel there unless you absolutely had to. But checking on his... I mean, the only thing I can think is if he didn't take fuel under some of these pit stops because he was just focused on making repairs. But that would be yeah, definitely a mistake. Fuel doesn't usually cost you too much time, even when you're making repairs. And so now he is going to have to drive his heart out to stay just 1 lap down and have a chance to take a wave around or catch a lucky dog. But right now, Brock Hersey in the 24 is in the lucky dog position. So Braxton in a tight spot here is he's trying to stay ahead of Brian Smith. He's also fighting for track position with Chris Camburn. Camburn is running 6th, and he goes high. So now he is in the lucky dog position. First car 1 lap down. That leaves just 5 cars on the lead lap. This is getting interesting, Alan. Again, I'm not sure why he would come down like that. And Adam Ball is not in his pit stall, but still on pit road, and has been for 2.5 minutes.
I mean,
so right here, I'm wondering, like, is Brian Smith giving Braxton a courtesy of not pushing him harder? And just
There's
like that,
caution.
there goes 32 of Cody Eldred. Was that Eldred? It
that was Eldred.
Eldred is... Am I reading that right? He's 121 laps down, Alan.
Yeah, you know, you are definitely reading that right.
So a late start for the 32. Joining us just under 20 laps ago and then getting loose on his own. I'm sure there's going to be a couple people not too happy about the 32 coming out so far down and causing a caution.
Ooh.
But this is getting weird now, is how I'd put it. So Brian Smith has stayed out. Cody Neal, Ryan Patty, Jacob Smith all on pit road. Patrick Colby stays out. And if you're Smith and Colby, I'm thinking, hey, there's no way I'm going to pit here, because I want to try and keep Braxton a lap down. If all the lead lap cars pit, then he can take a wave around, as can Hersey. Well, sorry, no, Hersey should be... Let's see, Camburn was in the lucky dog spot. Hersey lost it to him, so Hersey's still stuck a lap down. DeWeese is still stuck a lap down. Adam Ball has been black flagged for whatever it is he's doing on pit road there. Still there. We're gonna have to get our pit road reporter needs to do some digging here to figure out what is going on tonight, as we've got drivers dropping like flies, and then Adam Ball parked on pit road. I think he has made it to his actual pit stall now. We've got drivers pitting for fuel when we didn't think they needed to. Meanwhile, it's Brian Smith and Patrick Colby up front. So now everybody getting caught up here. So now the race to watch is going to be between DeWeese and Hersey. The 8 and the 24. They are racing to get the lucky dog for the next caution. The race within the race. Again, DeWeese now the odd driver out in the final 4. As Brian Smith, Patrick Colby, and Ryan Patty are in the top 4 and racing here as the green flag comes back out. Cody Neal, the non-playoff driver, up in the podium position. He's in second now. Pulls ahead of Colby and Patty. And again, we've got kind of a hodgepodge of pit strategies here as Brian Smith and Patrick Colby stayed out. 66 lap old tires. Cody Neal and Ryan Patty, Jacob Smith all pitted right there. I imagine they're going to stay out at the end of the stage. So they have fresh tires. Neal, I mean, with the tire advantage of that big of 67 laps, I would think Cody would be able to track down Brian here. But there's just 6 laps to go in stage 2. And Smith is continuing to pull away. As Patty gets around Colby. And here comes DeWeese.
Braxton DeWeese, 5 to go. Here we go. We got a race for that 3rd position right now. And it's a 3-horse battle between Ryan Patty, Braxton DeWeese, and Patrick Colby here. DeWeese 1 lap down in that spot for the lucky dog. But here comes
He is, and
Braxton
you know what?
Louise.
If he can get around, I guess he's going to get the lucky dog either way. But I was going to say, if he can get around Patty and Neil, he would also be able to take a wave around, knowing that Brian Smith needs to pit. But he did his job to race up there and put a gap on Brock Hersey to get in lucky dog position. Now 3 laps to go as Patty has caught the 38.
Question is, you know, Braxton Louise is going to catch up to these two. What does he do with them when he gets there? Because he is there.
Yeah, there was some contact on entry. Patty not showing a lot of patience here for the non-playoff driver of Cody Neal. I think he is locked in and focused on trying to cut the gap to Brian Smith. They both lock up and drive in a little too hard there. Some great racing here for second through fourth. Or sorry, second and third. Deweese a lap down, but in position for the lucky dog here, as that should be the end of stage 2, and it is. So Brian Smith sweeps both stages. Cody Neal in second. Ryan Patty and Patrick Colby third and fourth. Chris Camburn making a great rebound there. Kind of caught that lucky dog and made use of it. He's in the top 5 now ahead of Jacob Smith. Those are all the lead lap drivers. Then Braxton Deweese going to pick up the lucky dog, and he'll join those drivers on the lead lap at the beginning of stage 3. And with that, we're going to step away one more time for a commercial break and go side by side as you see all the pit road action here in the Martinsville 300 with the Icon Cup Series on SRM. Welcome back to the Icon Cup Series on Sunday night. Martinsville 300. It's Cody Neal and Chris Camburn leading the field back to green to start the final stage. You're in race number 2 of the 3-race Final 4 round. Brian Smith took home the victory at Homestead last week to get a jump start into the Final 4. We've got Phoenix looming for next week as well, but right now we're racing at the Paperclip, Martinsville, Virginia. Cody Neal is out in the lead. Couple drivers choosing to flip this stage. Cody Neal was one of them, pitted back on lap 139. In stage 2, Chris Camburn did the same. Camburn's not able to hold position, though, as he's already dropped back to 6th. But Cody Neal holding on to the lead as Jacob Smith and Ryan Patty are battling for 2nd. Then Brian Smith sitting in 4th, Patrick Colby in 5th. The other Final Four playoff driver, Braxton Deweese, is back in 7th. He picked up some damage earlier in the race, been trying to recover from that ever since. Then made a green flag pit stop that we weren't entirely sure why. Cost him a lap, and then 2 cautions. Got him back into the lucky dog position, and now he's back on the lead lap in 7th. We'll make that 6th as he gets around Camburn.
141 laps to go here in stage number 3. And so far it's been Braxton Deweese as he is closing in on that 28 car back of Patrick Colby. Ryan Patty, Cody Neal goes around, catches. Oh no! Ryan Patty involved. I was going to say Shane Eric, Goodyear to Goodyear. Brian Smith involved in the aftermath. And they are going to be more matter than a wet hornet on New Year's.
Yeah, this is huge. Both Brian Smith and Ryan Patty caught up in that one. It started with Cody Neal. Here, Patty and Neal are battling for the lead. They're coming down the front stretch, and yes, there's some contact, and that just gets the 38 all squirrely hard into the inside wall. Then Patty gets hit, and he goes up in the wall. Then it was actually all... Oh no, Colby also involved as he makes contact with Smith. All right, let's go back and watch it again, this time from with our eyes on Colby. We'll go ahead and make it regular speed here. As you see, the contact between the front two gets Neal hard into the wall. Then Colby and Smith making contact. The only playoff driver not involved in that was Braxton Deweese, who you see shot through on the bottom. I think I want to watch it from his perspective now. Now on board with Braxton. He was running 6th. And he's just going to get it woed down all the way to 2nd gear and hug the curb to stay out of all of the chaos. That moves him up to 3rd. What a wild turn of events, Alan. Patty with heavy damage on the front of the 30 car. Neal was also heavily damaged as he hit that inside wall and shot up the track into Patty. I think Brian Smith got minimal damage as he kind of got T-boned there by Colby on the right side of his car. I don't see any noticeable damage on the 78. But Patty's nose is really pressed in, and again, aerodynamics not something you worry about at Martinsville, but I'd be worried about the radiator on that 30 car. Damage like that can certainly make you overheat. As the 38's sitting on pit road. That leaves just 7 cars on the lead lap. As the pace truck hits pit road again, it's now Jacob Smith and Patrick Colby out front. Braxton Deweese and Brian Smith in row 2. And Brian shoots to the outside, thinks about going 3 wide, and wisely tucks back in, tries to dime in the corner to shoot under Patrick Colby, and he's going to do it.
Right now, Patrick Colby, Brian Smith are Goodyear to Goodyear. Coming out of turn number 3 and 4. They're going to get single filed out. Ooh, Cody Eldridge has another issue. He is, I don't know what happened there. Comes down to the track 121 laps down. Manages to pass 3 cars, though.
And now Jacob Smith out front. I mean, Ryan Patty is still back there. He's in 6th, but you can tell that 30 car does not have the same speed it did before that contact.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's weird. Oh, Braxton Deweese looking to the outside. Here comes Brian Smith. Brian Smith is not going to let that incident get the best of him, as he's going to be looking to pass both of those drivers. He might even put the bumper to Braxton Deweese.
Yeah, this three-car battle for the lead is getting wild. Still 131 laps to go, but it just feels like this is just so important. Every position matters, especially when those positions are against other drivers in the final championship four. Deweese already having to face adversity and catch a lucky dog just to get back to the lead lap. Now finds himself avoiding the wreck of the night and battling for second place, sandwiched between two teammates.
Yeah, Braxton Deweese. You know, could you imagine next week the party they're gonna have on Jane's on Main if Braxton Deweese can pull out this championship?
I know they would love to see that 8-car get to victory lane and grab that championship trophy, as Jacob has to check up in the middle of the corner. That gives Deweese the opening he needs. Down low. And he is gaining inch by inch, as they're now perfectly side by side heading into turn 3. And he gets a little bit of a better run, but the 4 carries momentum off the high side.
Oh,
and there it is. He clears
comes
him, and Jacob is not going to put up the same fight with his teammate. Lets the 78 go. These drivers on a mission tonight. Brian Smith, 14 wins on the season. Deweese just 1. But he's in the final 4 just the same. Had a great year. Consistent speed. Comes in second in the points, just 3 points behind Brian Smith. But right now he's 1 position in front of him and leading this race.
125 laps to go. Here comes Brian Smith looking to the outside of Braxton Deweese as they head off in turn number 1 and 2. Thought about putting a bumper to him as they're on board down the back straightaway. We were almost Goodyear to Goodyear for just a moment. There we go.
Ooh.
Contact.
I couldn't tell if he hit Deweese or if he hit the curb. I think it might have been the curb. Got that 78 loose.
He's gonna stay in it, battle that curb. He's gonna back up to his teammate of Jacob Smith in the 4-car. Those puppy dogs have gone for a wild ride here this evening, and that's going to allow a half-second lead for Braxton Deweese over Brian Smith. There's what the eyeball test is showing. That's what our telemetry is showing.
Right now, fastest drivers, the top 3 fastest drivers on track over the last couple laps have been the top 3 by position. Braxton Deweese averaging under, and then they're starting to lose some speed here as the tires break in, but Braxton Deweese still the fastest on track on average over the last 5 laps. Brian Smith and Jacob Smith right behind him. Then Ryan Patty is actually the 4th fastest car on track, but that's over a 10th slower than these other playoff drivers up here at the front. Patty now running in 5th place. As we mentioned, I mean, he's still got reasonable speed. He's still in the top 5, but you can see that damage on the front of the 30 car, and you know it's holding him back. He's going to need a couple cautions to get some repairs done. Bring it back to these guys at the front. As Brian is back to Braxton's bumper. Still 119 laps to go, but these two are racing like the championship is on the line right now. Oh, you can see Brian gets in so much deeper into the corner, but has to lock up the tires to check up. We now jump on board and look back at Brian Smith. from the 8 car. There is a little bit of damage to that right front fender of Brian Smith's car too, Alan.
A little bit. That's from that earlier incident. That's not really affecting him right now. But Brian Smith is right there on the back bumper of Braxton Deweese with 116 laps to go. We're working lap 185 of, well, now 185 laps from the history book there. Brian Smith, there's another tire lockup. That's going to allow Braxton Deweese to put a gap between him and Smith. The driver out of Miamisburg, Ohio, continues to lead this piece as they come out of turn number 3 and 4 down the front straightaway. And Brian Smith just getting a little bit better for an entrance that time.
Oh, he's still locking up the tires. Now, you know, I kind of thought at the start of this run that maybe the 78 was playing it safe, just kind of waiting for the 8 to make a mistake, and then he would pounce on him, but it might be the opposite. It seems like the 8 is the one who's pacing himself, and the 78 now trying a little too hard and locking up the tires on a couple occasions.
And that's the game that Braxton Deweese has played all summer long, all season long, to be exact. Is that, you know, he's just doing what he's done all season long, and here he is finding himself up in the lead. And you see that brake rotor just glow in orange on both of those race machines.
And these two are now starting to pull away from Jacob in the 4. And these 3 have really put a gap back to 4th place Patrick Colby of about 5 seconds. And Colby had run into Smith's car. And it looks like that nose on the 28 is still pushed in just a little bit. They're down around the grill. So that might be slowing him down. As Brian Smith dives to the inside of Braxton Deweese. Door to door. Ooh, almost some contact there as the 78 came up the track. But that's going to give him the lead. Now, I can't tell, Alan, if someone gets to your inside, it seems inevitable that they're going to make the pass. I wonder if you should just kind of let them go and try to do the crossover as soon as possible. We saw Ryan Patty do that earlier, and that seemed to work out for him, as they're now catching lap traffic of Brock Hersey. And there's a little friendly nudge between the leaders.
And this stage of the game, yes. Now, here's the thing that's going to be in Braxton Deweese's favor right now, is that lap car ahead of Chris Camber, and that's going to be, you know, well, I stand corrected. It looks like it's Ryan Patty ahead of.
I think it's Cody Eldred, actually.
Yeah, it might. Yeah, Cody Eldred. There we go. Cody Eldred is going to move out of the way, let these two race it out. But nonetheless, Chris Camber is the next car to go a lap down to Brian Smith and Braxton Deweese. Braxton Deweese looks like he's been racing short tracks for a good long while here, as we are working lap 196, 4 laps to go.
These two are stuck together.
Just like glue?
I don't know if it's just like glue. It's kind of like they've got a rubber band between their cars. They just keep coming back together. Deweese's car seems so much better in the middle of the corner, but then Smith seems better both on entry and on exit. Right there, you can see the 8 just rolls the center so well, and all of this battling has brought Jacob Smith a little bit closer back into the picture.
$103 laps left to go here from Martinsville, as we're working lap 198, make it 199 as the field goes by next time by.
And Ryan Patty has tracked down Patrick Colby as well. Again, it doesn't seem like there's that much visible damage on the 28, but he is off the pace the same way that Patty is. They're both about a tenth, 2/10 off the leaders because of the damage that they picked up in these last few incidents.
Yeah, 101 laps to go. Brian Smith out to a half-second lead over Braxton Louise. Here comes Jacob Smith, though. He's closing in on that 8 car. That 8 car is in a Buddy's Motorsports sandwich, if you will. As Braxton Louise trying to maybe do a fuel run here and save as much as he can. 100 laps to go for that number 878 car.
Yeah, we were about 50 laps into this fuel run. My calculations say you can go closer to 100 laps under green, maybe 90, 95 or so. So we're about halfway through that, but I don't think anyone's going to take tires on their green flag stop. It's just too much time. And which means there's really no advantage to short pitting either. Now I could see someone trying 2 tires, but I just feel like fuel only is what we saw in the first stage whenever people did come to pit road. But we've got a lot of tire sets sitting on pit wall. If we look at Brian's night, for example, he's only put tires on twice. They had 5 additional sets, so he's still got 3 there. So I don't know. I could kind of see it going either way. If you're Jacob Smith, maybe it's worth a gamble. Get fresh tires and see if that will bring you back by these leaders by the end of the race. In that case, you'd want to split this final stage right down the middle, 75 and 75. But if you're planning to go fuel only, I think you just run it out in case there's a caution, because pitting puts you at least 1 lap down and probably 2 laps down if you're not close to where the leader is. So if you're Patrick Colby or Ryan Patty, like you're probably going 2 laps down if you pit.
I can concur with that. Some sound logic here. Braxton Louise closing back in. You see that interval just ever so slightly. Now they're coming up on Chris Camburn and that number 88 car. And that might be what Braxton Louise is waiting on, as Brian Smith's got 99 or 94 problems and Braxton Louise is one.
Actually, looks like Camburn might have had an issue a handful of laps ago. We'll check that out when we get a chance. But right now, DeWeese looking to the outside of Brian Smith. Doesn't work out for him right there. But he might have found a slightly different line to get some speed here on these old tires. Again, now 56 laps on this set of tires for Brian Smith and Braxton DeWeese. And if you're wondering, like, why we saw Jacob Smith battling earlier, check on his situation. His tires are a little bit older. He went fuel only there at the stage because he had pitted on the caution before. And I think that's hindering the 4 car, that little bit of a tire difference, keeping him from being able to really throw down with Braxton and Brian. So Ryan Patty is pitting, as is Cody Neal. Or sorry, Neal's been parked for a long time, but Patty coming in, and we'll see what he does. Yeah, he's going to put tires on this thing and see if he can make a difference out of it. And this is interesting because so many cars are out of the race and so many laps down. He is going to lose 2 laps to the leader, like we said, but he still has a 15-lap gap to losing another position, which would be Adam Ball, who's 17 laps down. And now he's going to be on 4 fresh tires, while everyone in front of him might be pressured to go fuel only to protect their track position. So
Yeah, and maybe even there's Chris Camper going to go a lap down, and he's going to get out of the way and let these guys race it out.
So Patty's about a third of a lap behind the leaders if he wants to try and get one of these laps back with those tires. And let's give him another lap to check the lap time, but that last one he was 0.4 faster than the leaders.
Ooh, yellow flag, Ryan Patty crashed.
And that is not going to help his strategy at all. Again, he had just picked up 4 fresh tires. The car gets loose. Oh, and he saved it 3 or 4 times before head on into the wall for the 30. So a little more damage. Now 2 laps down, being aggressive on pit strategy. And the cold tires got him there out of the exit of turn 2. And this is pretty much going to take pit strategy completely out of it at this point. All drivers on the lead lap are coming to pit road. I imagine they're going to get 4 tires, top this thing off on fuel, and they will not be to pit road again tonight unless we have some sort of late race restart or green-white checker. Then they might come down and get tires again, but they will not need fuel for the rest of this 300 lap race at Martinsville. So I'm showing Camburn as the leader. I'm not really sure why the leaderboard says that. He was in the lucky dog position, I believe. And now we have just 5 cars on the lead lap. Patrick Colby in 5th. I'll make that Patrick Colby in 4th. Jacob Smith 3rd, Braxton Dewey 2nd, Brian Smith in 1st, and then Camburn and rounding out the top 5. Still 82 laps remaining. Ryan Patty does grab a wave around. I think he also just picked up a black flag. But I'm not entirely sure why. Either way, Ryan Patty going to catch the back of the field here just before the restart. He'll be 1 lap down, racing with Brock Hersey for the next lucky dog as Brian Smith and Braxton Deweese lead us back to green here at Martinsville. And a great jump by the inside lane. That's going to give Jacob Smith 2nd position right away as they come out of turn 2 down the backstretch. Braxton Deweese regretting the way that restart went, I'm sure, as those Buddy Motorsports drivers seem to get the jump on him there. And that is a tough spot to be in anytime you're on a restart and your teammates around you. You know they are sitting in a Discord talking to each other, and they can count that down in a way that you just can't keep up with as that odd driver out.
Yeah, absolutely. Braxton Deweese all over Jacob Smith, though, in that number 4 car. We've seen this song and dance all too many times before. Brian Smith, Jacob Smith, Buddy Motorsports, 1, 2. Braxton Deweese there in that 3rd position. But here we go. Almost. Oh, dear. Goodyear to Goodyear coming out of turn number 3 and 4. Good advantage to Braxton Deweese as he is driving it off in turn number 1.
Oh!
Lose a crossover.
And yeah, the crossover only works if you can get beside him. But Braxton checked up and guarded the bottom, and that's kind of the counter move. If you're wondering, when you dive under someone, the crossover is when they go high just so that they can dime in the corner and shoot down underneath of you. And kind of the only way to stop it is exactly what the 8 car does. You check up a little bit to keep your car on the bottom of the track And when that driver tries to pull the crossover, they run into your bumper, and you just hope both of you survive it. There is Jacob, smacks the wall. I don't think enough for damage, but enough to make him think about it. And I think if these drivers were on equal footing, they're both playoff drivers, are both out of it, I think Jacob could be a little bit upset that Braxton blocked that crossover move like that. But I think because Deweese is in the championship racing against Brian Smith just ahead of them, Jacob's kind of got to give him a little bit of extra, I don't know, an IOU maybe for next season and let it go for now. But they are still right there all together. As second and third, they're starting to catch Brian. He's a tenth slower than they are. Looks like Ryan Patty did serve that black flag and is now 2 laps down. So Brock Hersey is the only car on 1 lap down in that lucky dog fight. Even being 2 laps down, though, with the way this race has run, Ryan Patty is still in 7th position.
Yeah, absolutely. 70 laps to go here in this race here as we were working lap 231. Make it 69 laps to go. Brian Jacob Smith trying to get around Braxton Deweese. Meanwhile, as that's going on, Brian Smith has opened up all but a second lead over Braxton Deweese. Braxton Deweese trying to close in. It's been these 3 guys just dominating this race all day long.
Oh, Jacob thought about trying to get underneath the 8 car right there. Couldn't quite get there in turn 2. See if he can get a run this time down the front stretch. Not quite. As now Smith has picked up the pace out front. Brian Smith, that is. He's starting to pull away from Braxton. About a 10th faster that last time. And about a half 10th faster that lap. So Smith still out front. He's led over 150 laps now. Ryan Patty had led 37. Braxton Weiss has led 22. Jacob Smith with 12. Cody Neal 11. Kyle Purcell with 2. And Chris Camburn even snagged 1 again. I think that might have been a bit of a tower confusion under caution. But either way, Jacob Smith locks up his left front tire and loses some gap to Braxton. Been a complicated race. 12 cautions, 2 of those for stage, but 10 for reasons, and still just 4 lead changes. At least under green flag conditions. With now 62 laps remaining, Brian Smith is out front, slowly pulling away from Braxton Deweese, who is holding off Jacob Smith for 2nd place. Patrick Colby's in 4th, about 5 seconds behind them, battling with Chris Camburn.
I was going to say, it's just 61 laps to go. Patrick Colby riding in that 4th position. But Brian Smith out there in the front has opened it up to a 1 second lead over Braxton DeWeese and Jacob Smith. Patrick Colby not making any ground up on the leader here this afternoon with just 60 laps to go.
And these two battling for 4th and 5th are the last cars on the lead lap. So our entry list has dwindled. There's a whole party at the beer stand right now, Alan. Jacob still right there with Deweese. I don't think this battle is over. They come up on Cody
Not by a long
Eldred.
shot.
Eldred a number of laps down at this point. Again, he kind of started the race a little late, but with so many cars that have parked it throughout the night, Eldred is in position to get a top 10, Alan. That's pretty impressive, starting 120 laps late. Deweese goes a little bit wide there on turn exit. And Jacob's going to try to get underneath of him. Not going to get there. Ooh, and then tags the wall again on exit. At some point, this 4 car has got to lose some patience, though, with the 8. Like the 4 got a little squirrely on entry, locked him up. Stays out of the 8 car, keeps up the speed. And there it is again. It just seems like the 8's braking point is a little earlier than Jacob wants his to be. And so when they have a gap like this, the 4 is able to gain on him. But when he gets any closer, he has to kind of check up abruptly, and that's locking up his tires, pushing his car up the track on entry. Jump on board with the 4.
Hello.
Watch this battle. Again, just 33 laps on these tires. We saw drivers go a lot longer than that without having any tire issues. So when they're locking them up, it's just because of how hard they're driving. And if you've never been to Martinsville in person, I mean, it's a historical track. There's a lot of things it's known for, but my favorite is the hot dogs. There is a factory in the area that puts a completely unnecessary but very fun bright pink food coloring into the hot dogs. They almost look like they're radioactive, and maybe they are, but they are delicious. They come with a Martinsville signature topping, which is a kind of like a custom-made slaw and chili combo. As we see the 4 now starting to get very loose on entry. Too much heat in those rear tires. Anyway, the hot dogs sell, I believe, for $2 a piece, which is hard to beat these days, or at least they did the last time I was there. Would highly recommend, 10 or 20 of those to round out your race day experience if you get the opportunity to visit Martinsville. So now Deweese starting to gap Jacob as the 4 car just has overdriven his tires trying to get around the 8. And you can see how slick they've become. The sun continuing to play hide and seek with us throughout the race as we're now overcast again. Air temp is 73 degrees Fahrenheit, track temp 81. So we've got a fair amount of grip in the track compared to if that sun had stayed out the whole time. Now Deweese and Brian Smith out front, starting to match their lap times a little better. Deweese faster for a few laps, then Smith faster for a few laps, but only by a couple hundredths. So we have 42 laps remaining. Everyone should be good on fuel. We might see folks grab tires if we catch a late race caution. There are now 5 cars on the lead lap. Brock Hersey is the only car 1 lap down, waiting on a lucky dog. Ryan Patty had a couple of cautions not go his way. Then got aggressive on pit strategy, dropped him 2 laps down. That has not paid off as he was hoping fresh tires would give him a way to catch up to Brian, Braxton, and Jacob. Patrick Colby also picked up some damage in a late caution. Nothing too visible, but he is running in 4th, but has been noticeably off pace since picking up that damage in that incident. Riding about 12 seconds behind the leaders. This Camburn has had a pretty good kind of rebound from where his race started. You can see he has pitted to make repairs about 7 times. 6 or 7 times. And it has paid off as he made it all the way up to now 5th. After starting 7th and dropping back to 15th early in the race. But now he is going to lose his lap one more time as Brian Smith goes around the 88. That leaves just 4 cars now on the lead lap in the Martinsville 300. Deweese was a 1/10 of a second faster that last lap. As a 78 still maintaining about a 9/10 gap back to second place. These 2 drivers came into today's race 1-2 in points. They've run 1-2 here for the last 50 laps or so, most of stage 3. And so the points battle between the 78 and the 8 is going to be close still as we head into Phoenix next week. We take a quick look at that Icon Cup Series schedule. It has been a long and dramatic season. And now we are in the Final 4 here at Martinsville, with just 1 race remaining at Phoenix. Deweese 2/10 faster that time. As he found something. Could just be lap traffic, but Deweese faster than Brian Smith 4 of the last 5 laps. Faster again that lap. You can see there Deweese about a 1/2 per lap that he is gaining on the 78 with 31 laps to go. Plenty of time for Braxton to find a way to catch and get around the 78. As these two have really separated themselves from the entire field here in the closing stages. Now Smith faster. They're really just trading it back and forth. Rationing their tires. It's going to end up being about an 85 lap run on these tires to the finish. Almost a full fuel run. They're both on the exact same strategy. 4 tires back on lap 217. Pretty much matching lap times at this point. Jump on board with Brian Smith out front. See how hard he's pushing his car. And it seems like not too hard at all. You can see he's even adjusted his downshift point to be much later on entry. Earlier in the race, we saw drivers downshifting to third right at the red line on the RPM tachometer here. But now, as Brian downshifts, he's waiting all the way to the concrete, nowhere near the red line. He's just taking it easy on his car, being smooth and steady. Now we'll shift to Braxton Deweese. See if he's doing it any different. Still aggressive on the downshift, still pushing. But both of them really running the same line. They're just hugging that curb, and that is the, call it the traditional way to get around Martinsville. There seems to be a little bit of magic grip about an inch off that concrete curb. The same way when you run at Homestead or Chicagoland, there's some sort of magic grip about an inch off the outside wall. You can't see it, but you can feel it when you get down in there. Both of these drivers just doing everything they can to save the tires on this long run and keep the speed up to compete with each other. Now 3 seconds separate them and third place driver Jacob Smith. Why don't we jump into the cockpit with Jacob now? You can see he's still aggressively downshifting to help the car rotate on entry. Very similar line here for the top 3 drivers. Just 20 laps to go in what has been a battle of survival. 4 cars remain on the lead lap. 7 cars on track. Make that 8. I think Adam Ball did eventually come back out. Just as I say that, he hits pit road again. I think he has reached the point of the race where he's 18 laps down. There's 18 laps to go. He is not going to be able to gain any more positions even if drivers wreck out. The gap up front still pretty much the same, just under a second, 9/10. Deweese and Brian Smith matching lap times here as the laps wind down. Now, I know this has been a long race, but really want to thank everybody for watching on the SRM YouTube channel tonight. Let us know who you're pulling for. We see some people cheering for Patrick Colby, a couple of drivers cheering for number 8, Braxton Deweese. We know everybody at Jane's on Main is pulling for the 8 car. As Brian has now caught Ryan Patty, one of the championship drivers who's had a string of bad luck here tonight, but he is racing hard to stay just 2 laps down. And that is allowing Deweese to catch up, cutting that lead down to 6/10 now with 14 laps remaining. We jump back on board with Braxton DeWeese here in the closing laps. Does he have anything left to track down Brian Smith? And now, Brian Smith has caught Patrick Colby, the 4th place car. How hard will Patrick fight to stay on the lead lap, and will that give DeWeese an opportunity? Colby, another one of the Championship 4 drivers. Looks like he's going to give Brian plenty of room and let him go by. Man, if I'm Braxton, I kind of wish Patrick had given him a little bit of a harder time. And there is a caution. It's Jacob Smith that's involved here on lap 291. Jacob was running 3rd. And here's what happened to the number 4 car. And he just gets loose on exit. We saw the 4 car overdrive those rear tires when he was battling with the 8 car, I mean, almost 40 laps ago. And it finally caught up to him. Very similar to what we saw happen to Ryan Patty. They got loose out of turn 4 and then tried to chase it all the way down the straight before making contact. So this is going to give Braxton DeWeese one more chance to be right beside Brian Smith and try to take the victory. At this point, Brian has now led over 200 laps. DeWeese led 22 earlier. Everyone else on the lead lap. When I say everyone, it's just Jacob Smith was the only other driver left. 3 drivers on the lead lap as we had watched Patrick Colby go 1 lap down. So Colby going to pick up that lucky dog, get himself another opportunity to get back up there. Take another look at our wrench wranglers. These are the drivers making repairs on the night. Adam Ball made over 2 minutes of repairs. Camburn made close to 2 minutes. Braxton DeWeese has made 45 seconds of repairs and is still running in that P2 position. Ryan Patty, I think, could use some repairs, but hasn't been able to take the time to get them. He's still riding 2 laps down, along with Brock Hersey. And I feel like we've only talked about Brock tonight when we've said, hey, he's in a lucky dog position or he's going a lap down, but he has stood the test of time tonight, outlasting 10 other drivers who are either out of this race, down hundreds of laps, or have been caught up in caution after caution. The 24 car is just running his own race, and it's got him in 6th place. Great run there for the 24 position-wise, even though he is 2 laps down. So the pace truck is off. Brian Smith is out front for the restart. It's going to be 5 laps to go at the line. And there they go. The other drivers had not caught up to the field all the way as Braxton DeWeese gets loose, gets into Hersey. Talk about the commentator's curse. We were just talking about how great of a night the 24 was having to avoid all of the cautions, and he gets caught up in one there. As they come to the green flag. Looks like the 8 car missed a shift maybe. Comes down on the 24. No heavy contact for anyone. It was a bit of an awkward restart all around as a number of drivers had taken wave arounds and other things like that. And they had not caught up to the field. in time for the green flag. We also see Jacob Smith picked up a black flag. Take a look at that. Yeah, I'm not sure what that's for. That was on lap 295. You know, he might have gotten a passing under yellow as the rest of the drivers hadn't caught up to the field. I assume race control will take care of that. Yeah, he picked it up right there before the restart. So that's going to set us up for an overtime green-white checker finish. And this race is just getting weirder and longer. 300 laps wasn't enough. And now they're all back together. So Brian Smith, Braxton DeWeese, Jacob Smith. I'm still showing Jacob with that black flag. We'll see if race control takes care of that for him. There were just a handful of cars not even close to caught up to the field there for the restart. I'd find it hard to hold Jacob accountable for that one. As we come to 1 to green, I think they might have given Braxton DeWeese an end-of-line penalty for causing the caution. So he's going to drop to the back. He's still in 5th position. Cam Byrne is now in 4th. And there's the green flag. Buddy Motorsports teammates out front. Brian Smith. Oh, but Patrick Colby's going to get around Jacob Smith right away. Lap and a half remain. Patrick Colby is within reach of the 78. Does he have anything for Brian? They both go deep into turn 1 on the final lap. White flag is out. Here comes Patrick Colby. One final shot at Brian Smith into turn 3. Locks up the tire. Not going to get there. Runs wide. And Brian Smith picks up his 15th win on the season. His 2nd in a row here in the round of 4. The final 4. And he's going to set himself up with the best situation points-wise that he could have going into Phoenix next week. For the season finale, the Icon Cup Series. Again, it's Brian Smith, Patrick Colby, and Chris Camburn ends up P3. What a race for the 88. Again, it was a battle of attrition, an endurance race. We were scheduled to run 300 laps, ended up going 302. As now Brian Smith is burning it down on the front stretch. That's the SRM burnout cam for you. He's had a lot of practice to get these donuts down right. And there it is. So we're going to pull our podium finishers up into the booth. Sounds like Brian blew the motor celebrating. I think that's the way to do it. We'll see who's available to chat with us first. Looks like 2nd place. Patrick Colby is ready. See if we can get the 28 driver up in the booth. Patrick Colby, you got Shane in the booth. You got a copy?
Yes, sir.
Wow. I mean, it was a long race to begin with, 300 laps on the schedule, but you guys said, hey, that's not enough. Let's go 302. Walk us through your wild night.
Oh man, it was just kind of about staying clean for the most part. I really didn't have a lot of long run speed, and that every time we went long there, I ended up falling off. So I was really thankful for the green white checkers. It gave me a shot at it, anyways.
Yeah, walk us through that incident that was somewhere around about 100 laps to go. All three of the four playoff drivers caught up in a wreck, and we see you get into the side of the 78 as it all kind of slowed down. Did you pick up any significant damage there? Was that holding you back on the final run?
Nah, it was just a little bit of front end damage, something that a sledgehammer didn't knock back out. It really didn't affect the car too much, but tell you what, I should aim for the wheel. That 78 car might have won our race tonight.
Yeah, I mean, this was a race that I wouldn't have predicted coming in here, that we'd have so many cautions early, not really have a green flag pit cycle except for a few cars that were gambling on fuel and had to. But you were up in the front pretty much the whole race. You had a little bit of adversity, drop to 11th around lap 40 and 50, but you stayed in the top 5 all night long, even with a little bit of repairs you had to do. I mean, just a great race for you. Not quite, able to get the victory, but if you're staying in P2, you're keeping that point differential as tight as possible without winning. So congratulations on that. Are you looking forward to Phoenix, or is it a track you looking forward to it, or are you looking waiting for it to be over?
I think I got a 5th there earlier this year. It's kind of a hit or miss track for me. I think I've gotten a lot better at it, so we'll see. I don't know if I'm going to have anything for Brian, but I think we kept it within 6 points going into next week. But definitely been a long, fun season, ready for a break, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's been a blast watching all you guys drive this season and then come down to a dramatic finish here in the penultimate race at Martinsville. Congratulations again on the finish in P2. Who else you got to thank for tonight's great run?
Oh, my wife, obviously. She's supported me this whole season and been there from winning that weird Kansas race and getting here, and then kind of hanging out behind me here the whole time. So I appreciate her and everything she does.
Yes, sir. We all appreciate all our spouses, parents, friends, family, whoever's watching out there, helping drivers lock off their Sunday nights to be dedicated to the league, and then chiming in the live chat as well. We love seeing all the fans out there. So congratulations again. We'll see you next week at Phoenix.
Thanks, guys.
That was Patrick Colby, P2. Chris Camburn does not appear to be in the waiting room, so we're going to move on up to the winner of the race, number 78, Brian Smith. Brian, you got a copy?
Yeah, I got you. What's up?
How about that? I mean, it looks like, I wouldn't say you were running away with it. I mean, you led a lot of laps, but it seemed like drivers kept coming back with an opportunity to get to your bumper there as the race was winding down. Walk us through your night.
Yeah, well, it didn't get off to a great start. Messed up in qualifying, and obviously had to start in the back. So was lucky enough to stay out of trouble for the most part. I think I did end up spinning once in the middle of the race, but just had a tiny little bit of damage from that. Nothing that was going to impact the cars. So about all you could ask for at a Martinsville race in terms of keeping the car clean, and there's a little bit of contact, but nothing too major, and able to stay out front enough to get this thing done.
Yeah, we were jumping on board with you at different points in the race, and I think especially your shift point, on turn entry showed when you were trying to just take care of the car and ride it out versus when you were being aggressive. How do you decide, how hard you're going to defend, how aggressive you're going to try to get around a lap car when you've got Braxton on your bumper chasing you down? Like, how do you decide when to be aggressive and when to be, play it safe when you're out front lead and trying to protect a points lead for a championship?
Well, I think if you have a chance to get the lead here, you have to take it. And at least the one pass that I can think of for the lead on Braxton, he was running about half a lane up pretty consistently, and I was just trying to stick my nose in there without making contact on him. And sure enough, he left it open well enough to where I was able to do that once, and I just had to take it. You gotta use up some tire and get the lead when you can. So, but other than that, it was just about managing the gap. I didn't want to push too hard. I was running really far back brake bias. I was running at 36% tonight, which I I don't think I've ever run 36% brake bias in my iRacing career. So that was a little different for me. The car was a little squirrely on cold tires getting into the corners. The back end kind of wanted to step around, but I was worried about burning the right front off. There's nothing worse than being tight at this track, and I'm sure you guys could tell watching. My strategy here is to just wrap that curb as tight as possible. Braxton was obviously a little higher. He was kind of diamonding it, but I was just doing what I was comfortable with and trying to manage the tires, especially the right front. And yeah, so you never know when you're going to get a long run here, and when you do, and it really helps to take care of that right front.
Yeah, I mean, we talked all night long in the broadcast about the people diamonding, the people hugging the bottom, about how there's almost like an invisible extra piece of grip you can get if you're about a half inch off of that curb. And that seemed to be what was working for you and a couple other guys tonight. But towards the end, you're coming around and you're lapping. I think it was Colby was getting lapped, and you at that point you had lapped everyone except the top three. I mean, how aggressive you do that? I was kind of expecting Colby maybe to put up a bigger fight with you, and were you worried that he might do that and let Deweese back into the picture?
Yeah, if the circumstances were different and this was not a playoff race, I would not be so aggressive trying to put guys a lap down. I know what you're talking about with Patrick. I remember that. And then Braxton came off pit road once right in front of me, and I could have put him 2 laps down, but there was about 15 to go. I think it was the second stage, if I'm right. And I should have been more aggressive. I should have really tried to bury him 2 laps down, because this is the championship we're going into, and I'm battling these 3 other guys. So just looking at the results, though, I don't think I could ask for much more, considering Braxton was P2 before that final restart. So I believe he was in second place going into this, followed by Patrick and Patty. So I don't know what the points are off the top of my head, but I should have a nice little buffer going into Phoenix, and it's just going to be about executing there and not messing up. I certainly like that racetrack. I've had bad luck there in this league, but hopefully that changes next week, and hopefully I'm talking to you guys with the championship.
Yes, sir. Well, I've got some good news for you. I know one of the goals you had for the season was to try and break or match and break your win total for last season. If I remember right, last season it was 15, and this is number 15, so you're going to go into Phoenix with an opportunity to best your record.
Oh, that's awesome. I did not realize this was 15. So yeah, we're gonna try to make it 16 next week. That'd be an awesome way to do it.
Well, you've been, again, just dominant all season. This was a dominant race in terms of laps led for you, but you always had somebody right there in your mirror, so it was an exciting race to watch, even though the numbers were dwindling there at the end. But congratulations on the season. Congratulations on the race. No matter what happens next week, I think you've been very impressive, and you should be proud of that. Anybody else you want to thank for tonight's run here at the 78 car?
Yeah, I think we had, 15, 16 cars out there tonight, so thanks to everyone for showing up. I know Martinsville's usually not one to get a big car count. It's certainly not one of my favorite racetracks to race at. But for the most part, everyone did a great job. I think we were a little slow getting this race going with yellows, but once it kind of got spaced out a little bit, I think everyone was doing a good job of give and take and understanding the long run picture of the race tonight. So thanks for everyone to showing up, and everyone that did. Great job out there. And thanks to you guys for doing the broadcast. And yeah, like I said, we'll just have to see what happens at Phoenix.
Yes, sir. Well, good luck out there next week. We'll see you next week at Phoenix.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Yeah, Camburn, I don't see him in there, so that's going to wrap up our interviews for the night. What a race we had. Alan had to step away from the booth, but we're going to wrap this thing up here. So its final results are going to be Brian Smith, Patrick Colby, and Chris Camburn on the podium. Then Jacob Smith, Braxton Deweese, the top 5. Ryan Patty, Brock Hersey, Adam Ball, Cody Eldred, Cody Neal, the top 10. Kyle Purcell, Robert Bloon, Sean Purcell, Jake Champion, Bentley Glazer, Charles Woods. Your 16-car field. Quite a night in terms of playoff drama, with 3 of the 4 drivers involved in a wreck there in the beginning of stage 3. And drivers getting multiple lucky dogs and wave rounds to rebound from serious damage. Ryan Patty had front end damage that looked, I thought for sure he was going to overheat before this thing was over, but he made it back to a 6th place finish Braxton DeWeese got hit with a super late race black flag after what it looked to be a missed shift. Hurt his restart and his last chance to try and take the lead from Brian Smith. He still came away with a top 5. And so the points are still going to be tight heading into Phoenix. We hope all of you can join us there next Sunday night for the final race of the Icon Cup Series season, wrapping up and crowning our champion. For Shane Cochran and Alan Bergen in the booth, thanks for watching. Hit that like and subscribe if you want to check out more SRM content. Otherwise, we'll see you next week at Phoenix.